In 2019, Wintranslation acquired the translation business of the consulting firm Baastel. Huiping Zhang from Wintranslation and Alain Lafontaine from Baastel tell us their win-win story.
My full name is Huiping and my last name is Zhang, and I own a translation company in Ottawa here called Wintranslation. This is the 25th year of me running this company. So I, in some ways, feel like a veteran. And in 2019, we acquired the translation assets of Baastel, and it was a wonderful experience. And today we're here to talk about how it happened, and we hope in the future to be considered for, translators retiring or translation companies looking to retire or change direction. And that's what we're here today to discuss and learn and be excited about. I was an international visa student. I came to Canada when I was 20. And when I finished my master's degree, 3 years later, I had difficulty finding work in the field that I did my master's degree in communications. So by chance, I got a job as a part-time coordinator for a not-for-profit organization doing immigrant settlement. And part of that, my work was to coordinate interpreters and translators in over 70 languages. And it's funny. I grew up in China, and China is not a country of diversity. It's a little bit of exaggeration, but I said, I had seen 5 white people before I came to Canada, and so it was a big culture shock and career shock and shock of different kinds. When a Greek Orthodox priest walks into my office with the hat and the beard, and I was like, "Here, I have your assignment for you." And so it was a tremendous amount of learning for me from all sorts of angles. I was only at that job for about 7 months, but it gave me a tremendous insight into how diverse things could be language-wise and culture-wise, business custom-wise. And from there, I also understood the business of translation. So it's not, for the work that I was in, it was not so much about myself being a translator. It was about understanding the requirements of the client. It was about understanding the skill sets required to do the translation work. And that could range from understanding, the dialect, like which specific area in some countries or some languages have a lot of dialects and regional variances, and also understanding the subject matter. Sometimes, it has to do with, very high level of safety standard or very high level of cultural sensitivity. So I think that exposure that I had really gave me a good foundation to in a position to manage resources and language professionals in many different languages and different cultures.
Alors, Alain Lafontaine, moi je suis président du groupe-conseil Baastel Limité, qui a été créé en 89, donc ça fait 33 ans, ça ne me rajeunit pas, puis qui en partant avait une mission autour de ce qui est service conseil en développement international. Et donc, c'est autour de ça qu'on est né. À l'époque, c'était autour de l'Agence canadienne de développement international, qui est maintenant Affaires mondiales Canada, donc une agence fédérale. Mais Baastel a beaucoup évolué dans le temps et maintenant travaille avec des joueurs dans la coopération à l'échelle internationale, que ce soit en Europe, aux États-Unis, un peu partout dans le monde. Bien entendu, notre focus, c'est sur les zones en développement, donc l'Afrique, l'Asie, l'Amérique latine, les Caraïbes. À travers tout ça, autour de la naissance de Baastel, il y avait des gens qui avaient des compétences en traduction. Et donc, au tout début, là, dans les premières années, il y a une unité de traduction qui s'est formée. Et c'est devenu quand même une unité importante chez Baastel dans le temps et qui nous a permis aussi de développer notre business international à l'époque. Et donc, c'était un peu le background général. Et bien entendu, à travers tout ça, on a développé des relations d'affaires à travers notre coordonnateur de traduction qui travaillait de près avec Huiping. Donc, c'était des vrais partenaires d'affaires, si on veut. Et nous, on est arrivé à une époque, à un moment donné, où la traduction était moins centrale. Ce qu'on fait, c'était un nice to have, comme on dit en anglais, dans le sens que ça nous permettait de complémenter nos services à l'international qui sont dans un cadre multiculturel, multilingue, bien entendu. Mais en même temps, je dirais que l'appétit des partenaires qui développaient la business chez Baastel avec l'évolution de la firme était de plus en plus sur se concentrer sur ce qu'on appelle notre core mission autour du développement international. Donc, de là, les discussions avec Huiping qui se sont lancées. And that made things so much easier for us in terms of the due diligence. I think, there were a few exchanges, but things were quite seamless. And one of our concerns through that process, because we're continuing to be in business and we have a wide array of clients, both in Canada, even if we work internationally, we're working with different government departments and so on in Canada and internationally, was to ensure that the quality that we pride ourselves in delivering to our clients was maintained. That the image, because there's always a period of transition, and that's how the deal was made, so that our name and logo was associated for a while until we get the full relationship with Wintranslation and our clients set up. And so that's also something that was dear to our heart and that we were very comforted in through that process, that Huiping put a lot of energy with our team to ensure that our reputation remained intact. And so we felt at ease, and this was so to speak, a peaceful transition for us.
By chance, I think one of my clients was also working with Baastel, and she mentioned how good Baastel's translation operation was, and so there's part of me that was competitive, part of me that was really curious. So I phoned him up, the coordinator of the translation program. I said, hello, this is who I am, and I want to know what you do, and I've heard really good things about you. Can we have lunch? So we did, and we had lunch, every maybe 3-4 months, like for several years. And I think from there, we built a friendship, but I also built an understanding of how Baastel works, what their challenges are. From there I understood, that's not really their core business, and this is sort of like a tag down program. And how, I got to know the people. And so when the time came for us to make the purchase, I did not have to do as much in depth of due diligence because, for several years, I know that that's their client. Like, I don't really have to verify because I know from like 3 years ago, So a lot of the times, translation companies or our translator retires, the size of the portfolio is really good, it's valuable, but if there's a big complicated due diligence or a transaction, acquisition process, it pretty much will cost, whatever this retirement nest egg that would have meant for the person selling. And because for us, there's so much trust, it was done for sure, but it was not so bureaucratic or so, like lots of lawyers and accountants, that it happened quite seamlessly. And we had really good experience with the accounting team at Baastel and the project management team at Baastel. And once we took over the portfolio, we were able to grow the business in a year and a half, 2 years by 50%. So a lot of the contracts got renewed and enhanced. And so it has been a really good experience for us. And hence 2 years later, the president of Baastel is gracious and generous enough to sit in this call with us and to talk about what it is for them and to help us, share this experience with industry colleagues. And hopefully in the future, we will attract more opportunities for people to want to work with us. And our interest is in translation companies could be English into French, French into English, but it could also be other languages with a very strong, well-defined, competitive niche. We are also a specialist in Canadian Indigenous languages, so we're also looking for a collaboration or purchase of other translation operations that focus on a specific regional, Indigenous language focus.
I'm so much looking forward to traveling again and meeting people face to face, being in the field, seeing the impact of the projects we work with our funders, donors, and so on, and feel the difference that you can make in people's life and in the environment. Because as you know, one of our big themes is climate change, biodiversity conservation. So that's at the center also of what we do. And it's a very, as we know, urgent. Those are urgent issues that need to be tackled. And while there is things you can do virtually, and we're a very decentralized, all over the world business, so we do use virtual means quite a bit, but we do need to be on the ground to also verify the results and the impacts of what we do.
Friends coming over for dinner more often and sit, in the backyard with, my tennis buddies. And I think I've already done some travel before all of this is. So, I'm looking forward to more of it, but I didn't feel like I stopped doing it. But definitely, I think I love the working from home. I mean, I read press all the time about, Google is going back to the office April 1st, other companies. And I'm like, can I say we're just going to work from home? It puts a much stronger emphasis on measuring one's work by output and impact rather than input, clocking in the hours. And that's a really interesting and intellectually stimulating challenge for me as a business owner. So obviously I feel challenged, but at the same time, I'm quite excited. It's going to be, in a way, a new beginning, after 25 years, like for me to rethink, like, if we can't measure work by input, how do we measure impact?